ending as a result of when we took over from the province.
What is the problem there? Like, how can, like, is there, I guess I always thought, like, if you got a ticket, you couldn't get your license renewed, but I don't know how that works now, but I, like, what is the problem that there's so much money out there that we haven't collected? Like, are we doing something wrong or like, do we, the agencies we've hired not get enough about kickback or what's, I guess I'm looking for some answers as to, I mean, there's enough money there. We could hire all these MBIs if we wanted, right?
Through the chair, yes, I feel the collection companies are working diligently on our behalf. It's not just Norfolk County's arrears that they're working on. They are all over the province. Any of the downloaded POA fines back in 2001, I think it was. Everyone has some high fines that are still collectible. As far as, I just see it doesn't change very much from year to year. So again, it's basically fines that have been, that we've taken over or that we can collect and will be fines for Norfolk County.
So is there an actual mechanism where we can like force these people to pay, or like, is that license issue still a bona fide way to go after them, or is there no support that way?
Through the chair, no, the province has implemented some really strict guidelines so that individuals will not receive their renewal of licenses, etc., if they have any PO fines outstanding. And it is on a provincial system, so it doesn't matter if it's a Norfolk County fine and it's collected in City of Sudbury. The funds will come to Norfolk County. We will be providing a year-end report for POA that will provide a lot of the details that you're asking about and what our ability is to collect.
And when will that be roughly?
The first quarter of 2023.
Okay.
Councillor Columbus, then Barry.
On a similar note, can we get a status on the outstanding property taxes that have not been collected?
Through the chair, yes, we can.
Councillor Barry.
Thank you, Chair, to you, through you to Kathy there. Do we have a 6.5, oh no, sorry, it's almost 7, like, whatever, 6.5 million that's owed? Are we gonna know, do we know that if those people are still around? Like, they still live in the province? Are they alive? Like, is at what point does this number sort of get reduced because we accept that those people are with it?
Through the chair, every year we, any of our fees, we have a collection clerk that does go through the fees that we've issued to see if there's any deceased, any records created to a deceased individual, and then we will come back with a report to council to write those ones mails off. At this point in time, those are the only ones that we do write off. Is it once we have confirmation that the individual is deceased.
So just to clarify then, so this number is fines that we should be able to collect, I guess is the way to put it.
That's my understanding.
Councillor Van Passen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Since we're on the POA system, the summary on page 207 is going to cost us $355,000 to run this. And if I understand this right, we haven't in the past been allocating the rental of the building as specific to this department. So with that adjustment, we're now losing money instead of making money. Do I have that right?
Through the chair, Councilor Van Passen is correct. In the past, we were not showing all costs related to the operation of the POA. They moved into the new Robinson Street Administration Building, and it was decided at that time not to allocate the charges for that building out, but we wanted to move it to areas that are funded or areas that do have revenue generation to show you that the true picture of the cost.
Councillor Vanden Driesche, then Brunton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. if you look at the amount collected by collection agencies, it's been on a constant decline. Does that ring any bells that we should be looking at other agencies or looking for new agencies that are just coming about? Because we continuously look for this money, but we're not recouping. We should be on an increasing scale, not a decreasing scale, in my opinion, unless, I think it's time to change the agencies.
Through the chair, we can look into that. I do know we have quite a roster and they're well-known collection agencies, but again, we can entertain that and see what we can do.
Thanks, Councillor Breton.
On the operating costs for the POA, I know when we built all the courthouses and jail cell or whatever's over there, but I think we spent over 2-point-something million on top for leasehold improvements. But is that included in there? Like, do you charge those costs into this operating budget for the POA?
Through the chair to Councillor Breton, not the actual original capital cost, but we are charging the lease, that portion based on the square footage, for the lease costs that we do pay
So that
the owner.
2 million we put in there is kind of gone, I guess, eh? The owner has it in his pocket. Can you give me any ray of hope on, an idea what these people brought in last year by chance? $1,000 maybe, or was it $10,000? Any figure you can give me?
Through the chair, just for clarification, you mean the collection agencies?
Yeah, right.
Anybody. I'm not sure we have it separated out, but I will look into it for you. Hopefully by the end today or tomorrow, I can have a response for you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move along. It's in your chart.
Another question, just one more question for, so yeah, to Councillor Vanderdush's point there, it is going down, but I'm wondering, like, what was it prior to the pandemic? Like, is this decline related to that? Because the numbers, but may not tell the whole story. So I'm wondering, like, where we at something higher before everything collapsed?
This is through the chair. As you can see, in 2020, it was approximately 129,000. And like many of us, including Norfolk County, we ceased a lot of collections and we're not charging penalties, etc. So I do suspect that will increase.
And it's been at about 6 million outstandings for the entire duration of the former term of council, so I'm not sure how long it's that way before. Councillor Michele.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you to staff. Kathy, would I be correct in assuming that the majority of these uncollected fines, that they are getting fairly old? That may be another reason why they're so hard to collect. You know, people who owe money for 5, 10 years, I'm just guessing, not the types of people who are going to now suddenly decide, like, I've owed it for a long time, I need to pay.
Through the chair, you are probably correct that a lot of them are old since the amount hasn't been reduced that much since we have taken over the POA. People move, for example, move out of the country and then they may move back into the country. And again, when they try and get their license, that's when they'll try and they won't be able to get their license unless those POA fines are still on record.
Okay, thanks, staff. I'm going to cut the POA questions off here because there's no adjustments to the budget and we're getting a staff report on it. So let's move on to corporate revenues and expenditures. And I believe Ms. Fanning is presenting. Chris, you need this? Page 218 to 224.
Thank you, Mayor Martin, and through you to council, if that's okay with you, I'll go through corporate revenues and expenditures and COVID together, and then we can address questions for both. Okay. So corporate revenues and expenditures is an area that's used to account for corporate revenues and expenditures that don't pertain to an individual department or division. So items that are included here, for example, like supplemental tax revenues, the allocation that we spoke of earlier for potential part-time owners participation. You'll see a number of debt payments, asset review board costs and credit rating services, all those kinds of things. In 2022, staff worked with an external contractor to manage our property tax assessment base, and we were successful in growing our assessment revenue as a result. And along with resuming tax sale processes, and we also established a 5-year cash flow forecast for the organization. And in 2023, we plan to continue working with our property tax assessment-based contractor to realize additional revenue and to finalize a review of the county's investment plan and to finalize a development charge background study. Budget drivers include increases in debt payments and contributions to reserves, which are offset by payments in lieu of taxes, and the removal of some placeholder budgets related to some budget options and inflationary impacts from prior years. The budget option placeholder was set up to accommodate the impacts of implementing the options and is now being removed as anticipated. The placeholder for CPI and inflationary impacts is being removed from this area because it's now included in specific line items in the county's various departments and divisions. So we'll go on to COVID. This cost center was set up in 2020 to account for corporate costs related directly to the COVID-19 pandemic. And these were costs that were incurred outside of the public health impact. Throughout 2022, these operations have been winding down, including the closure of our corporate PPE store that finance has been managing since 2020. For 2023, staff plan to maintain a minimal inventory level and continue to reduce these centralized operations, and they will be fully funded from the Safe Restart funding. So that's a zero net levy impact for this area now. The significant reduction, oh, sorry, I already said that part. So I'm going to go back, if I can, very quickly to Councilor Brunton. Had asked earlier for an update on the executive summary numbers for the corporate revenues and expenditures areas. I've asked Michael if he can bring that up on the screen. So we'll make sure that you have that, and then I'm happy to take questions on either of those areas. Okey-dokey. Councillor Duffy?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you, Amy, thank you for your presentation. I am just, I guess I just want to get a better handle on, you said that you worked with an external contractor regarding the property tax assessment base. You found approximately $10 million in additional assessment. We're hoping to continue that again in 2023. What does it actually look like? And do we reach a point where we go, okay, we got everything?
Thank you, and through the mayor to Councillor Duffy, I'll start, and then I may ask Ms. LaPlante if she wants to assist me if I miss anything pertinent. But yeah, so we do have an external contractor that we're working with, and they have let us know that they feel there is a significant amount more that they can continue to do, and we do meet with them regularly. So I do suspect that at one point we will reach that where, you know, the amount of growth that they're able to find starts to wane, and then, you know, we'll know that we're catching up. But that being said, there are always changes going on as well. So we're looking at prior years now, and when we catch up, you know, there might be other things that we can continue to find, but we do meet regularly and assess the progress of that work. Councillor Brunton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. But an improvement on the tax arrears from past years. I give you credit for that. One of my questions would be here on this, 294 properties are being identified for the 3-year tax arrears. What about, is that still relevant, that 294? And do we have 67 registered already? Is that current, or those figures changed? I assume a lot of people jump on the last year and delay it. You know, they get to the 3rd year and jump back to 2 or whatever. Is that still happening? Somebody answer that.
Thank you. Yes, through the chair to Councillor Brunton, those numbers are accurate. They're at various stages of registration process, which, you know, is fairly lengthy, but yes, those numbers are accurate.
I've never been able to get a handle on the 294. Is that relatively high or new? I've never been able to see a figure up until now.
through the chair to Councillor Brunton, I believe it is higher than normal because we halted this process during COVID-19 at council's direction. But I'm going to look to Kathy to let me know if that's correct.
That is correct. We do proceed with any tap sales every 2 years.
Thank you.
Okay, not seeing any further hands, so why don't we take, I'm gonna say 5, but knowing all of you, it'll be 10-minute break, except for Counselor Duffy, he's very prompt. And what we'll do is allow staff to reset the computer to figure out our YouTube issue, get staff to put up where we're at, which I'm sure is 5.7. And then what I'd like to do is come back and discuss the discretionary items. Okay? 2:47, less than 10 minutes. Okay, welcome back, everyone. We are going to pick up here with our big package that was put on our desks yesterday and dig into the discretionary items. So page 2 of that big package has a staff report, a recommendation. You can see on our screen here, 5.7 is still up. So this motion is a direct add. Maybe give everyone a minute to pull up the motion. So this addresses multiple additions to the budget. This addresses adding the SCORE membership. Among others, I'll let you read it. So in our building block slide that was in our binder, we're on the very top in the red section, which is discretionary items. Starting with a staff prepared recommendation to address some of them. Councillor Duffy, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a question for clarification. So earlier, I asked the finance staff just about the discretionary items and what that number would be. So then, does that include and exclude these items that are in this, what you gave me before, the additional point, what did you say, 0.4?
Through the mayor to Councillor Duffy, no, what's on your screen right now is currently where we're sitting without discussing these items. So any of these would be an increase to the levy, and cumulatively they are approximately 0.4% additional.
Thank you. Just so I am understanding correctly then. So earlier when I asked that question, we said it was that 0.4. That is these things as well as the other, there's 3 that came forward from the councillors. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Van Passen, go ahead.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I will start the ball rolling. I know I whined about this and we've got a deputation on the score. It's $25,000. I don't really consider that to add to it because it's always been in the budget. It just wasn't put back in. And I think it's a great return on the investment in it. And especially when we're sitting with on the field position in the Economic Development Department right now. And here you've the whole Economic Development Corporation working on our behalf. And I don't know if you want to separate these, but I would move that we reinsert the store membership for 2023.
Sure. While you're at it, is there anything else on there that you're happy to move so we can keep the train rolling, or do you want to separate out everything?
I'm happy with not giving Linwood Arts the 10,000 until we work that out better. And I am happy with not giving the BIA that money till we get some more reports on it. But I think there's more discussion going to go on the library board, so let me pull that one out separate.
Okay, great. So the motion will read that we receive it as information that staff be directed to include 25,000 in the 2023 levy with regards to SCORE, that council not approve the Linwood Art request for 10,000 until such time as operating and financing agreements have been finalized, and that staff be directed to bring back reports on the downtown Simcoe BIA matter prior to the end of Q1 for council's consideration as a possible budget amendment. We are leaving out Norfolk County Public Library, and we'll do that separately. So moved by Councillor Van Passen, seconded by Councillor Berry. Councillor Button. Microphone, please.
All right, the BIA one, is that, sorry, I don't see the money in there, but there was 2 parts to it, was there not?
The garbage component and a commissioner request.
But the garbage was done last year, correct?
Yes.
So I'd like to see that part still in there, and I'm willing to wait on the commissioner, but
Can we get a staff comment on why it's been decided for our report with both of those items?
Through the mayor, I'll start. I believe the ask for the garbage is an increase from what we provide. But Andrew can maybe clarify that.
Sorry, through the chair, I was just reading here to try and catch up where we were. Yes, that is correct. So the BIA did receive $10,000 as part of the 2022 budget for that service. They have requested now $14,000. So at this point, what you see in front of you is that we need to do a further review of that and bring something back.
So if we pass Councillor Van Passen's motion, does that ensure the 10,000 is still allocated? It's the additional for garbage specifically. Is it an additional 14,000 over and above, or is it $4,000? Additional $4,000. Okay, so back to finance then. So if we pass this motion as is the $10,000, that was grant money. So it's not in the budget, right? It's not carrying over to the BIA.
Yes, so through the chair to council, the $10,000 is in the base budget, and that was funded through economic recovery.
Okay, great. So they can still maintain their current service level with this. Okay, moved by Councillor Van Passen, seconded by Adam Berry. Any further debate or discussion? Call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We've got one remaining portion of the recommendation, and that concerns Norfolk County Public Library budget. Councillor Berry. Can you turn your mic on?
So for you, I guess to council, to get it rolling, I will, make a motion to include the NBR, Public Library into the web support operating budget.
Could I ask for clarification on that? Because we were doing, actually maybe it's through the staff. Is the NBI just the 92,100? Is the 174,300? That was all included in the base budget due to inflation and operating track. Yeah.
Through the mayor, that's correct. The NBI is 92,000.
Okay, and the $92,100 is the 20 hours per week that adds 5 hours to current staff and reduces the risk of closure, but $51,700 of that might need to call on, unless you can recall, Councillor Berry, you might need to call on Julie for clarification. Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Huffman. Can staff or Julie or a council member remind me about the portion of the grant funded position? Is that all of the 92,100? Is it? It's not. It's some of it. I would love that. Come on up, please. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I appreciate that. And I can clarify this. We currently do have a contract position for volunteer, and it will be over. This ask that we have is so that we can have the capacity to actually enact and activate the outcomes from that person's work. So by adding 5 hours to 5 positions, making them 20 hours, that gives me 100 hours a month of staff time to serve the public and to reduce the risks of us having to close. We are a designated cooling station for the county, so it's very important that we keep our business hours open during our business hours. And that is those 51,000, that's the 51,000 plus for the 5 hours to 5 positions, Madam Mayor. And the one position that we're asking for is to add to our cohort of frontline staff of library assistants. That gives us an additional 20 hours a week or 80 hours a month. So in total, that gives us more hours per month of staff time so that we have the capacity to ignite the volunteers. Currently, we are looking at a community that wants to get back into or move forward into a new way of connecting. There are more festivals, more opportunities for the library to outreach is very strong in the library, and that's part of our moving forward and next year and forward. And that means that we're connecting with communities all around the region. So if there is an event, a festival, or an organization that we can support and connect with, we are looking at using a volunteer cohort tandem with started. I can clarify that even further. The first answer would be yes, to help advance that, but that work, the output from that volunteer coordinator will be distributed among all staff for that work to move forward. Okay,
Got it. Any questions while Julie's here?
thank you.
Counselor Berry, go ahead.
Yeah, just want to clarify again that essentially this volunteer coordinator is going to help replace staff who are.
Advocating for the library and delivering activities.
Thank you.
So Van and Rishi, question for Julie.
For funding.
Any further questions? Counselor Duffy?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, Julie, thanks for being here. So just so that I understand, because my memory is a little foggy on this, I think you touched on it, but maybe you can expand on it further. So there are two parts to this request. So essentially two parts of this $92,000. So if I understood correctly, the first part is additional hours for 4 staff members. Is that correct? No. Okay. 5 staff members.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I was close. And then the second part is an additional staff person. So that person of that 92 is worth $40,000.
Yes.
So then the other 52 is for part 1. So I guess my question becomes, how would you handle getting one part and not the second part? So getting either the additional hours for 4 staff or 5 staff, or the additional staff person, which would be your preference? I'm just curious.
Through the mayor to the councilors. Thank you very much for that question. We have deliberated and debated on this and put together many staffing models to get to this point. Our priority would be at this juncture for the 5 hours for the existing staff, because for us, a model that is very popular, and most libraries do activate their volunteers to do the book sales, which are our fundraisers for our library. Right.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. It's good to have a refresher. It seems like forever ago when you were before us, giving us those numbers. We have a motion on the floor moved by Counselor Berry, seconded by Counselor Huffman. Counselor Van Passen, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I'll start this. Maybe Councillor Berry can verify this. I think it's been rather tough on the library board over the last 4 years when it came to budget times. And I got to say that I will support this motion. It is something new, something different. It's not
Back that as if it's equal trade, but yes, this is. I would suggest that this is part of addressing some of those issues that were created in a less expensive way, let's say. So it's a rethinking of how to bring people to the library and to do good things for the communities where the branches are, as well as the communities where we don't necessarily have a branch, but that they use the branches and benefit from.
Counselor Huffman.
Thank you, Chair Martin. I just wanted to add, I think it's looking at the statistics for the library over the last number of years and the increase in their numbers in almost every aspect of their operations. It just goes to show that during what we just experienced and continuing to have the effects of the pandemic, they were so extremely vital to the well-being of our community on many levels in the outreach, and it's a crucial, vital component of our communities, the libraries.
Counselor Duffy. Where I'm not a counselor anymore. I could get behind the support of the additional hours to staff. I'm struggling with validating and supporting the motion on a grant position that is expired. I think it's just not the year and a rough precedent to be setting when we carry over these grant funded positions and add them on. That being said, I understand the merit in it and the positive volunteer base it may generate, but for today in today's current climate with the budget, I can't support the motion as is, but I think we're headed in a positive direction regardless with council. So that being said, we know the motion. It is to include the Norfolk County Public Library NBI in the 2023 levy supported operating budget. And because I did a full motion last time, I'll do a full motion this time. So it's moved by Councillor Berry, seconded by Councillor Huffman. All those in favor? And opposed? And it is carried. Thank you very much. Okay, so that wraps up the discretionary items from page 2 of our addendum, the recommendations made by staff. So can we have any adjustments made or information inputted on that calendar when I find the right page that we're switching to? Next, we're going to continue with discretionary items, which is page 350 of that large package. Everybody there? We're still on discretionary items. These are items that council has requested to roll over to the budget. They are not staff recommendations. There is not a recommendation from staff to add them into the budget. Turn it over to Budget Committee. Councillor Columbus.
Would you like to start at the curator position?
I would love to, but you know what? I just realized I didn't remind you to pass around that petition to members of council and so on. Do you want to take that opportunity to make sure we see that now?
Hey, I was going to pass it on to you or the clerk, but apparently there's over 2,000 names on it. So we did receive that this morning. But with respect to the curator position, I noticed on page 353 in this package, just a couple pages over from where you are right now. At the bottom, it talks, without the curator position, the result impact will be that the Delhi Museum will have reduced hours of service again. There will be minimal backup.
With our current staff, have some equal hours across the board to have each of our museums open for an equal amount of time over a 30-day period. In the meantime, we would continue to work with our various service areas and look for opportunities for us to expand those hours by having additional resources deployed to those museums or work out of those museums without necessarily having to increase our headcount. We could easily come back to council mid-year, give you a status update in terms of where we're at, how that plan has progressed.
Customer survey that went out, and at that time, one of the questionable items was customer service. And Mr. Menzies, would that all fit into the picture here of the moving some of the customer service opportunities into the museums or libraries or something of that nature? Would that all flow into the final decision making process, or are we going to get a report on how well our customer service has improved or is doing?
Through you, Madam Mayor. So customer service, as council knows, we've recently hired a new director of communications and customer service. And part of what we're doing is looking at the overall program and what that looks like. Most organizations are moving towards sort of an online portal, a self-service portal to provide those who desire to have in-person service, give them that opportunity. And could we leverage that rotating sort of staff around to satellite locations to include our museums? And perhaps then we could have some folks located in those museum locations that would allow us to have those open, so we can have one museum staff there with some additional customer service staff there, so you don't have staff working in a facility by themselves. So that's why I'm asking if we could perhaps have a few months to look at that, try to design what that plan looks like, and then come back to council in terms of what that might look like going forward. In the meantime, we'll look at our staff, look at what we can do in terms of redeploying them to have equal amount of hours open to all of our museums, and come back to council with what that plan would look like.
Sorry, when would that come back? Because Councillor Columbus is going to have a community asking him.
I would say probably March or April at the latest.
Councillor Columbus, go ahead.
What I'm gathering is from the get-go, we are going to have all museums treated equally and fairly with respect to curatorial help and powers. And secondly, we're going to get a report with respect to how we can dovetail customer service in with the ability to open all the museums. Got it? And that would be coming forward by March. It's only 2 months away. March, April.
I guess, the CAO should shake his head, so are you comfortable with that in the short term?
You heard it all. There was a huge petition signed for a full-time curator. We're hearing that it's almost impossible right at this point, but we're working towards coming up with a solution. And that's what I'm happy about. And it's not just the curatorial position that's an issue. We need the second body there for liability, etc.
I commend you for your flexibility because I know you're in a tough spot. That was a heartfelt deputation, and I, again, fully agree with you about the commitments that were made to you and the rest of council. So I think that's a great solution. If you're supportive of that, it will send some direction to staff. Do you want to motion the staff report? Yeah. Oh, and yeah, breakfast as well.
I don't know if that's up to council if they want to put that formal motion.
We might as
direction
well
staff on that.
for you and your, okay. All right, Linda, I will get to you in just a minute. So we're going to put a motion on the floor moved by Councillor Columbus that staff be given the direction to come back with the report. I'm not going to check it. Yeah, but captured. Is there a seconder for Councillor Columbus's motion? Councillor Michelli. I'll go to Councillor Van Andrieschie and then Councillor Van Passen to speak to the motion or enter debate, and then I'll call the question.
I'm happy to hear. I apologize. I'm happy to hear that this is going to move forward to be taking a look at, but I would like it to move a little quicker. I would like some equity as soon as possible, not 2-3 months down the road. So I'm hoping that staff can reallocate staff that they're using to make sure that there's equity amongst the 3 museums. That's my comment. Thank you.
Councillor Van Passen and then Michelli.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a question first, staff's gonna go do some work, give us a report. Do we need to allocate any money to the budget line item for salary and wages to implement whatever potentially is gonna come out of here when your report comes in April or March or whenever it is? Because, even if it's for a part-time student or something, we need to allocate something into that budget for that. Otherwise, we're stuck where we are. So that would be my first question before I make a couple of comments.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think my preference would be to wait until we bring that forward if there's a budget amendment required at that time, because we've identified that additional resources, whether they be part-time or whatever, we will make that case to you at that time, and then council can make a decision as to whether the status quo is fine, whether it's a hybrid of that, or whether it's some of the plans that we bring forward for your consideration.
Your questions or comments?
Madam Mayor, and I mentioned some of this morning, that, when you do the big picture look and see how much money goes, taxpayer money goes to this department, and, we get 10,000 visits. It's, somewhere between $100, $150 per visit. And I do realize, and maybe that was a little bit of an exaggeration, but, heritage and culture is about protecting our heritage. It's about exposing, the next generation to our culture and our heritage from the past. And it's not just museums. I do get that. But in the grand scheme of things, is that an acceptable number, like $1.2 million? To have those 3 museums open a couple of days a week? Is that really what we want? And if it is, and that's what, the residents want, and that's what this council wants, then let's talk about that fairness and the equity.
Thank you. Councillor Michelli?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I certainly concur with what Councillor Van Passen is suggesting here, but I just wanted to mention something that I don't think came up this morning, that this entire environment and this circumstance has created a tremendous amount of frustration going forward, and hopefully we can come up with some answers that will provide the equity that I think is the intent of this. Thank you.
I'm in support of the motion. I just have one question with regards to page 353 on the, it's called a new budget initiative case, but it's not. I just think that there's a massive contradiction here where staff has provided a comment that if we don't hire this position, there'll be additional resources, reduced hours and reduced service to Delhi. I think that is terrible to put in writing. Otherwise, it should have come forward as a staff priority. So I think it puts council in a really tough spot. This was the comment you mentioned earlier, Councillor Columbus. So I guess I want to take this opportunity to find out on the record that if we don't go ahead with this position and we go ahead with the current motion that's on the floor, can we get confirmation that there will not be a reduction? I don't understand why there would be a reduction if we didn't have the position outside of that grant that we discussed.
Through the chair, all I can say is that it is extremely difficult to have all of these open for an equal amount of time.
I guess I understand that. I just challenge it. So why is it the way it is? Why is it heavier in Port Dover and heavier in Waterford? Then why can't we just simply make a scheduling adjustment?
Through the chair, I suppose if there's direction to reduce the amount that we ended up with for the days and hours for Port Dover and for Waterford to make up for in Delhi, that is something that could be looked at. There were some difficult strategic decisions to make to focus on the two more popular ones for visits.
Yeah, and I understand the position that staff's in and the position you're in right now with advocating for your team and advocating for your budget, but keeping a corporate lens on everything. I do get it. But now, you know, we've got this corporate-wide approach where these weren't endorsed by staff, and now we're saying that there's going to be a service level reduction if we don't do this. And I don't want to go so far to provide you with direction to take hours from other locations, because one, that's your and your team's job to provide the operations. It's not our job. Two, we didn't ever mandate, we didn't pass a motion saying Dover gets this many, Waterford gets this many, and Delhi only gets this many. So I do want to leave that with staff to do what they think is best. But we've heard from the community and from Councillor Columbus that, you know, we want to make that a priority. So just a little, I guess, caught off guard with the way that the justification reads. Al, do you want to chime in, and then Councillor Berry?
And through you, Madam Mayor, I appreciate the comments. I think if we take a holistic approach and maybe we're not talking about equality over a 5-day period or a weekly period, but we're talking about equality over a 30-day period and a calendar, we might be able to restructure the schedule accordingly, which may mean, will mean perhaps a service level reduction in terms of the amount of hours over a 30-day period at Port Dover or Waterford in order to make it equal across all of our museums. It's just over I think the part of the issue is if we're trying to schedule on a week by week basis, we're going to have to adjust that. But when we talk about over a monthly period, every museum will be open the same amount of hours. I think that is where we're going to get to, and then we'll report back to council on the various options at that point in March or April.
Yeah, certainly. And I think if there's a recommendation to change the allocation of the hours at the other museum, then we might not see the same support from council members. We may all jump on bringing a curator on to preserve their own hours, but let's do that research first. Councillor Berry, and then Duffy, and then I'm going to call the budget.
Thank you, Mayor. I think this is through you to Brandon. You know, we're talking about increasing Delhi's hours and maybe drawing from Waterford and Dover museum pool of hours, and that's fine. That makes sense. But I mean, we understand that we also operate the Eva Brook Donnelly, and I guess my question is there hours there that can be added to this inventory so it's shared among the 4 sites that the county currently operates? And if so, great. If not, fair enough, but I'd like to know why. And then sort of a comment that I want to just tag on to this discussion. I was actually prepared to support the curator position. especially in light of that we are giving 50,000, not giving, but contributing $50,000 to Linwood's operations. And so I guess where I'm at is I don't understand exactly how this works, where there's a third party not-for-profit that we running a building that we don't actually operate, that we are providing operating funds for, but then there's a facility that we do operate that we don't have funds for. So I'm trying to sort through all this so I understand exactly what we're doing. So if Brandon could comment on the inventory of hours, including Eva Brook, I'd appreciate that. And then if there's any, I don't know where I'm going with the Linwood thing, but I do see some discrepancy there. So Brandon, what do you think?
Sure, thanks through the chair. Beaver Brook is just the archives now, so it's not necessarily the museum, and it's run by a separate position. So as an archivist,
Of finding ways to generate revenue from them. And I'm not suggesting they should pay for themselves, but if there are opportunities through, whether it's through admission, whether it's through sponsorships or sponsored exhibits or donations, if there is a way to increase the revenue that's generated from them, I think that would be beneficial in some way, shape, or form. So just throwing that out there as a consideration. Let's look for ways as well to help offset that cost.
I hate to punt all the business of today down the road to the business of make it the business of tomorrow, but I've just heard from 2 council members, including Councillor Columbus, that they would have supported the curator. So Councillor Columbus, would you, I want to throw you a bone here, make an amendment and add that the curator position comes back to us at next year's budget for discussion, or you want to go farther?
Well, from what I'm hearing from the colleagues on both my sides is that they're supporting the curatorial position right today.
That equity that we've been speaking of, and I do think that, just referring to Councillor Duffy's suggestion that maybe we need to start really looking at making these museums have the, I will also.
Okay, before, to just see if that's a motion for Councillor Columbus. Motion is withdrawn. Where would you like to go?
Kind of confused right now because I've heard from colleagues that would support a curatorial position immediately. And I see Councillor Brandon, she's shaking her head. I don't know if anybody else is shaking their head.
Well, we're not doing any advanced polling here, so
No.
are you putting a motion on the ground?
So I will put the motion on the floor that we proceed to hire a full-time curator for the museums. Not necessarily just for Delhi Museum, but all the museums, another body. We'll see where it goes. Thanks.
Just because it's not been done doesn't mean it can't be done, and we learned that with the library. So I think that that's a possible solution, or a piece of a solution. And I think that you'll find the museums, when you go out there and ask your community for support, that you'll probably get a lot more than you expected.
Councillor Berry, are you available to sit as the chair of the museum committee instead of the library board and kickstart a fundraising campaign? It's Councillor Van Passen. Councillor Van Andriesch, then Van Passen.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you, yes, I totally concur with my colleagues. I am going to support this motion, but I do totally believe in fundraising or sponsorship. I think you would be surprised with the Delhi Museum what the sponsorship could be if we were all to be able to get out there and pound the pavement, and I would be more than willing to do that myself because I believe so much in that museum, in the heritage with that museum. So I'm going to, I'm speaking in support, and I will be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Van Passen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, I keep going back to this. If the want and the need for the Heritage and Culture Division is there, we want some equity. I'd also say that we've lost a bunch of volunteers because of COVID, and we need that catalyst to bring them back. And we had a deputation this morning going, there's a lot of people that are willing to come forward, but they need somebody there every day who would, help coordinate them. And, I could probably pawn this off as not so much, again, an investment in that future of getting our volunteers back like it used to be. That place used to be booming, but so I will support the motion. And again, I feel bad about these things, but support the motion to spend more money to bring the curators back into the division. But I wonder if, I could ask the mover and seconder, I still like that second part of the other motion about the study about putting Service Norfolk in other buildings, and I'd still like to see that report coming through. You know, maybe we can move it back to April and May now if we're gonna put the museum curator or the curator back, but, I wonder if you might want to add that back into the, motion, Councillor Clemens.
Definitely. And it will take some time to hire that curator anyway. Time to go through the posting process.
Counselor Berry, you okay with that?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I'm going to jump into debate here and call the question. I firmly and fundamentally believe in history, heritage, and culture of our communities, keeping them very distinct and separate and letting them thrive on that. I never supported cutting this position in the first place, but yet here we are, and I'm not prepared to add this onto the levy coming out of COVID, coming out of discussions where we've just cut our own wages and try to find as much of relief as we can for the taxpayers when this wasn't endorsed by staff. So I commend you, Councillor Columbus. Great. I think you maybe have this one in the bag here. It's a great service back into the community, but I personally cannot support it at this point in time. With that, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And opposed? And it is carried. And sorry, Teresa, did you capture the second part? I didn't. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, discretionary items back to committee. Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you, I would like to move the new budget initiative for the Economic Development Officer position.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Berry. Further discussion, debate? Go ahead, Councillor Duffy.
Thank you. And again, I hope that my colleagues were able to read the business case that was supplied by staff last evening relating to this position. The reason I believe it's important, the previous council has made significant cuts in the last number of years to economic development and to this current position where there is one person in that department. I understand obviously the director position is currently vacant. As we look to grow our community, economic development is an important driver of that. And I can speak as a business person that's been operating in this community for a number of years. You know, many years ago, I used to have regular ongoing dialogue with our economic development folks, and outside of sitting at a Chamber of Commerce meeting in the last 4 years, that's really the only time I've communicated with them. And as someone that works with a number of businesses across our community on a daily basis, I can say that many of them are saying, you know, well, what do we do with the...
Madam Mayor, I guess I can offer the opposite point of view. I think this position might be premature. We have the one position is vacant. It's not even been posted yet. Let's get that filled. I think we have a bit more homework to do before we need some more economic development, trying to sell this place as a place to move to and grow, because we have no industrial land to bring businesses to. We have a water supply that's questionable. In
Your position posted. I echo your position posted. I echo my colleague's sentiments. I think it's premature and we don't have the business plan in place yet. So I cannot support this this initiative.
Thank you, Councillor Huffman. I'm going to go final call. Know what the business case is. Discussed it. Asked our questions. Okay, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of Councillor Duffy's motion to add economic development position? And opposed? Motion's defeated. Thank you. Back to committee. Sorry, staff, can we get the calculator back up there? We've added a couple since. Is that everything? We're good? Okay, very well. I've got a couple notes here, but I was waiting to see where we landed today. And my plan was to go to 4:30. It's got a bit of time, so. If they don't bring it up, we don't. Okay, I'd like to. You gotta bring it up.
So it is, okay, I'll move that we at least get the bylaw officer on the floor.
So moved
So just for discussion that we add it to the budget.
by Councillor Berry. Is there a seconder? Okay. Thank you. Here. Yes, go ahead, Councillor Breton.
I'm missing something here. I appreciate, Councilor Berry's concern there, but we not agree earlier in the process here that we're going to speak with the bylaw, which is type supervisor. Anyways, and go over his table of contents, whatever he may present to us, and talk about commissioners. Isn't that?
So there's a report that's going to come back to us as we suggested, but that doesn't include additional resources or an ask. I'm not sure if that's going to be.
Madam Mayor, did you want, sorry to interrupt, did you want to just provide a summary on the update of where we're at now?
Staff, you can go ahead and do that while I find my page numbers.
Sorry for the delay. Through the mayor's council, as you'll see on your screen right now, we're sitting at a 5.9% increase. So that includes the impact from the rate budget that we discussed last week, the movement of the Waterford secondary plan project, the deferral of the placemaking assets projects, the change for council wages, the addition of the SCORE membership back into the budget, the NPI for the library, and curator position.
Okay. So just so we're clear, tomorrow we will address the reserves, section 4 and 5 of the binder of our binder. Okay. I'd like to bounce back to the Build Norfolk. Now that we've added all these additional things in, I'd like to revisit that. So my concerns are that we don't have user fees set, which is how we're going to create revenue to pay for the Build Norfolk. And we know that we need to get the ball rolling so that we're not playing catch up and issuing refunds. But I'm not sold on all 7 positions when I don't know what the user fees are going to be. And I don't want to be in a position where we're then needing to do a budget amendment because it was over or under. I would rather ease into the Build Norfolk plan. So I'm open to suggestions from staff, but I think that I'd like to move forward with the senior development technologist from engineering, the supervisor for planning, the project lead for planning, and a consulting budget. So if we get behind in work, staff don't need to come back to us and ask for support to get caught back up and therefore not issue additional refunds. And I think a consulting budget in discussions with staff around the 200,000 suffice. So now that I've said all that, I think I need to switch the chair with you, Deputy Mayor. Sorry. Is that okay? Okay. Sorry.
That's fine, Madam Mayor.
Okay, so if I may, through you, Mr. Chair, I'd like to put a motion on the floor and collect some feedback from staff with regards to that. Instead of all 7 staff members, senior development technologists, put someone in development and engineering, supervisor development planning, body and planning, Consulting budget, should we run over in the department, $200,000 budget? And the project lead to work on those local projects that have previously been consulted out. At which point in time, I'm hoping there's messaging for a funding source from the province to make municipalities whole again, at which point we can then revisit our user fees. Are they too high? Are they too low? How many planning files have come in? Is this suffice number of staff? Is it not enough? And I'm completely comfortable with staff returning to us halfway through the year and reassessing and asking for more staff. If more staff are justified, it won't be a budget amendment if it's $0, because the numbers should be coming in. So that makes me feel a little bit more comfortable about Build Norfolk, instead of just adding 7 FTEs on and not knowing if we're going to have the development to pay for it in full.
Madam Mayor has put that motion on the floor, correct, Madam Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Does she have a seconder, Councillor Huffman? Debate, discussion, like committee. Councillor Grant.
Mr. Chairman, I guess this is in regards to the development applications. There's a couple of things there that I had concerns about, and that is and I'm not quite clear as where we're going with it, Bill 23, Brandon, and but I gave you some information on eliminating site plan for various things that we used to have in the back year. We used to have a major minor application for site plans. I don't know if that is still alive. You said it is in our current policies, but can that be expanded on to reduce the workload, I guess, for the staff? But the other thing is, I don't know what your backload is for applications. I see a raft of them there, but could we, if we proceed with this motion, can we consult or farm out some of those to clear the books with some of them and get them done?
Through the chair. Okay, a few things to address there. So one, the site plan control bylaw and the user fee schedule has and does still have a major, a regular, a minor site plan, and there's also a waiver of site plan as well. So all of those are utilized. There was a backlog of site plans, and with our new process, that's been reduced, but there still is a backlog. We have streamlined efforts as it relates to zoning and official plan amendments and site plan process as well. And I guess there's a number of other items there. So I guess let me know if I should address the motion in any way. I'm kind of collecting my thoughts, but I think I've got some items I could further go on to if that's appropriate.
Okay, thank you, Brandon. Yes, I'm not exactly clear if that's the direction that the council wants to go in, so let him speak to that as
I'm not quite sure on, and Bill 23, I guess, is where we're going with that. Is it going to increase or reduce the workload for development applications? Is that a fair question?
Sure, through the chair. Bill 109 is the key reaction for this as it relates to the provincial legislation about the refunds if we don't meet the legislative timelines. So that's a lot of the impetus behind some of the Build Norfolk resourcing. The question about will Bill 23 reduce the amount of work or increase, and there are certain things that are less and there's certain things that are more. So it looks like it probably would balance out. There would be a few less minor site plans, but then some of the staff that are still involved, so engineering and others, are still going to have to review service connections and servicing items, even for the ones that wouldn't need a minor site plan anymore. But then the municipality with Bill 23, the changes are the conservation authority is not involved, but the municipality would be. So then we take on more level of effort. So I don't think it's really going to reduce the amount too much more.
Yeah, I guess if I may, Mr. Chairman, what the mayor, the mayor has proposed. Could you comment on that? Her proposal?
Sure, through the chair, thank you, if I may.
Yeah, just Brandon, let me just check, Madam Clerk, is that an appropriate procedure for staff to comment on the motion?
Through the chair, I would suggest if the councillor could reword it a little different to ask a staff a specific question rather than that would probably be more appropriate.
What do you think of the proposal of hiring 2 additional people? Am I correct? 3, sorry, 3. Yeah. Go ahead.
See, Brandon, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. Just want to make sure this time.
Yeah.
So through the chair, I would say that in response to the question about hiring a few, I would say ideally it would be best to help deal with the situation to have the full package of what we're looking at, because it's engineering, it's planning, it's building. Hiring 2 or 3 won't necessarily fully address the issue, say the problem go away, but there's still going to be issues even with that. But having said that, it does represent a fairly large increase in development fees. There is some merit to taking a phased approach with that. You have to come back with the updates to the user fees. We're going to be coming back by June with the update of how it's going in the first half of the year with Bill 109, Bill 23. I would suggest that there are some critical areas that we would need right now, and development engineering is one. So if we were to phase it in, I would say that the senior development technologist for sure is one of the highest ones on the radar. We need engineering clearances to move forward. That is like my last 2 years. This is like the main thing that keeps coming up and that we need. Number 2 is definitely having that direction and supervision and consistency to move stuff through the planning process and to make those calls about the minor site plans and when does the thing need this traffic study or not, and to get this stuff moving and rolling so that I would say that the development engineering technologist, senior one, the supervisor, those are the critical to get right now. And they're probably going to take a couple months to fill those because that's been our experience to get them up and running by July 1st. In the meantime, having some consultant dollars would really help. So on the engineering side, possibly on the planning side too, but definitely on the engineering side, we've seen that we need that right away in order to free up the backlog. The backlog's now shifted a little bit more into engineering, I would say. We're like multiple months, 6, 8 months behind. Like we need to get some of the stuff out done. So I would say those 3 items right away would have the biggest immediate impact on streamlining the process, speeding up the process, and moving forward. The other ones, of course, would help with the package. Project lead for planning, I would say, would be in my next tier. We can't do any of these plans in these areas without it. And so that's pretty critical to move forward. It's going to help prepare land for future growth, but also respond to community issues that are happening with development right now in these areas. So I would say that's the next tier. So I think that would be our priorities.
Thank you, Brandon. Councillor Van Passen.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can't support the motion on the floor here. When this was presented the first time, I thought it's about time. I don't think the whole term of council, I've never had a day that 1 or 2 or 3 planner positions weren't posted on our website because we're looking for them. I get calls consistently from people that are trying to work with the planning and building department. You know, they've had applications there for a year, year and a half, 2 years. They're still not done. It takes 3 to 6 months just to get an appointment to meet a planner for a pre-consult meeting. And you wonder why the public complains about our service. And, staff brought forward this proposal, no effect on the levy. And I also have full confidence that staff is not going to run out there and hire 7 new people tomorrow morning and then see what they can do with it. I was sort of hoping that our staff do like they always do and would fill those priority positions very quickly, get that backlog cleaned up where it needs to be. Over the course of time, would either come back and give us an update on the need for the rest of the employees or not, but I do have confidence in our staff that they're not just going to go out and hire people because they can. They're going to go out and hire them because they're needed. So I will still support the original NBI as it was presented to us quite some time ago, and don't have the urge to look over their shoulder and tell them our staff how to do their jobs. We set the big picture and allow them to implement that. And I'm not going to get down in the weeds and dictate which positions they should fill and should not fill, because I think there's a lot of priorities, and I'm not the one who's going to dictate what those priorities are right now. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Van Passen. Any other debate, Councillor Columbus?
Yes, mention this. Whether there's, you're talking about backlog. And, I actually, last week I had 4 calls from developers or consultants, their consultants, who had mentioned that some of these, are in the works for 2 years. And so like Councilor Van Passen said, it's very important to get these off the list. So, I just wonder if there's somehow that we could, when we get these cold calls and we find out that somebody's been waiting 2 years, can we get a report to councilors and mayor as to where these applications are at? For example, the project location, how old is it? When was the application first filed? What stage is it at? Was there a pre-consultation? That type of thing. It would just give us a heads up when we get that call that there is a project out there that needs to be advanced. Last week I had a call, or it was actually Monday, where somebody is looking to change the zoning on a building that's been vacant for 2 years. And it would create quite a few jobs actually, and it's in my ward for that matter. And the applicant was told that they'd have to wait until March to get a pre-consultation. This is jobs that we'd have immediately from a company that's over in Branttown. So is any comment with respect to being able to get as to exactly where these applications are at and how many is there? I think rather than get these cold calls and not knowing anything about these projects, at least then we could give it a heads up.
Through the chair, if I can, that isn't the topic of debate right now. That would be a subsidiary ask after this matter's been debated.
Just heard that the word backlog was mentioned earlier, so that's why I brought it.
Yes, and Councillor Columbus, I think you will get an opportunity to bring that up. Mayor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to provide my final comments in the debate. We don't know what the fees will be from this provincial download. So while I don't want to direct the operations of staff, 7 new FTE members, when we're not sure that we're going to fully recapture the costs, I'm definitely going to raise after we've added additional staff members. Furthermore, staff are going to come to us. They're going to provide an update on how many building permits have come in, what type of revenue that generated at user fees set at X rate. Do we need to up those user fees? Do we need to decrease those user fees? Do we need to add more staff? Do we not need to? All of that can happen halfway through. This is a safe bet at a phased approach that allows us to add more of a staffing complement than we've ever had before, including engineering, planning, consultant fees, and it provides us with the staff to continue our in-house studies on projects like the Waterford, study that we spoke about earlier, the downtown Simcoe plan, whatever the case may be. So it looks like the original proposal was for $778,800. And the way I proposed it, it's at $584,000. This is no reduction whatsoever to that levy because these fees are going to be brought in through charges through the planning department. But what it does is creates that almost 200,000 in a buffer for us to not have to have a budget amendment, change the user fee substantially if we didn't charge enough revenue because we overstaffed at this point in time. So until staff can say to us that they are confident that they're going to set a rate that's going to be accepted by the development community and we have enough development files coming in to pay for the staff, I'm not adding this many staff in that many departments. They're more than welcome to come back to us at any point in time and articulate their need for more resources. So that's all. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other debate or discussion by committee? Seeing none, we will call the question and the motion on the floor. Does anybody need that read? Madam Clerk?
That the Build Norfolk New Business Initiative be amended to include the following requests only: Senior Development Technologist Development Engineering, Supervisor Development Planning, Consulting Budget Development Engineering, Project Lead Planning. Right in the 2023 levy operated budget.
If we could add perhaps, in regards to the consulting dollars, $200,000. Just to make it clear, it's not an open-ended consulting, budget. It'd be a maximum of $200,000 to kickstart the backlog.
Councilor Huffman?
Thank you, Chair Michelle. Through you, can there be, what about a piece in there, an addendum added that staff are able to approach us again down the road? Just something along that line, so it's not just kind of a cut and dry.
Is the mover content with that?
Yes, that's great. Thank you.
So if
I
I
think
may,
everybody is aware now of what the motion is. Oh, sorry, Mr. Sierra.
if I may, then if we can put in the motion that staff return in June with an update in terms of where we're at. I think that will also give us a better understanding of where the province is in terms of their commitment to make municipalities whole in terms of the costs associated with the changing legislation. So it would be an opportune time for us to get in front of council and provide you with an update at that time.
And we can call the question. Are we putting it on the screen, Madam Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to our clerk, if we could, the consulting budget would be both for planning and development engineering. Because the Build Norfolk relates to both their service areas. Thank you.
Councilor Van Passen, was that something you wanted to add in the debate? Then we will call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? That is carried. Madam Mayor, I will return the chair to you.
Very much. I'm thinking, we call it a day.
Through the mayor, if I could just get one motion before we go, and it's just to receive the divisional presentations that were made throughout the day. Actually, no, scratch that. We still have health and social services.
Oh.
Ignore me.
So we're just going to adjourn this meeting. We'll pick it back up, or sorry, recess this meeting. We'll pick it back up tomorrow at 9:30. We're going to start with health and social, the Board of Health. And then we'll return to sections 4 and 5 of the binder, white binder. And that's it. Thank you. We're at 5.9, 5.8, 5.9. That wasn't an addition because we're recouping the fees. Sorry, is it 5.9 before you just 5.9? Okay. Okay, thank you staff for all of your work today, and we'll see you tomorrow morning.